The Man in the Brown Suit is a work of detective fiction by Agatha Christie, first published in the UK by the Bodley Head on the 22nd of August 1924 and in the US by Dodd, Mead and Company later in the same year. The UK edition retailed at 7 shillings and 6 pence, 7/6, and the US edition at $2. Context in Christie works. Like The Secret Adversary, The Man in the Brown Suit is less a novel of pure detection than it is a thriller typical of its period. It follows the adventures of Anne Bedingfeld as she becomes involved in a world of diamond thieves, murderers, and political intrigue. In this tale set in exotic southern Africa, Colonel Race makes his first appearance in the novel. He later appears in Cards on the Table, Sparkling Cyanide, and Death on the Nile. Plot. Orphan Anne Bedingfeld, in search of adventure, follows the clue in a note from the pocket of a murder victim. Her journey takes her on an ocean voyage from London to Africa, and finally to a lost island, on the trail of stolen diamonds. Nadina, a Russian dancer, receives a visit in her dressing room from Count Sergius Pavlovich. Both are in the service of a man they call the Colonel, an international agent provocateur and criminal. After many years, the Colonel is retiring, leaving his agents high and dry. Nadina has double-crossed the Colonel, however, keeping some De Beers diamonds from a crime years before. She now plans to blackmail the Colonel with the diamonds. Anne, longing for adventure, jumps at the chance offered by her father's solicitor to live with him and his wife in London. Returning from an unsuccessful job interview, Anne is on the platform at Hyde Park Corner tube station when a man falls onto the live track, dying instantly. A doctor examines the man, pronounces him dead, and leaves, dropping a note on his way. Anne picks up the note, which reads 17.122 Kilmorden Castle. The inquest on the dead man, L.B. Carden, brings a verdict of accidental death. In his pocket was a house agent's order to view a house for let, the Mill House in Marlow, and the next day the newspapers report that a dead woman has been found there, strangled. The house is owned by Sir Eustace Pedler MP. A young man in a brown suit is identified as a suspect, having entered the house soon after the dead woman. Anne realizes the doctor did not examine the dead man in an appropriate manner, and becomes suspicious. After fruitless investigations at Mill House, where she finds an undeveloped canister of film, Anne discovers that Kilmorden Castle is the name of a boat sailing on the 17th of January 1922 from Southampton to Cape Town. She books passage on it. On board ship, Anne meets Suzanne Blair, Colonel Race, and Sir Eustace Pedler himself. In addition to his normal secretary, Guy Paget, he has employed a man who goes by the name of Harry Rayburn. At 1 a.m. on the morning of the 22nd, a young man staggers into Anne's cabin having been stabbed. Anne is able to dress the man's slight wound, but the man is not in the least bit grateful and leaves after an altercation with her. One evening on the ship, Colonel Race recounts the story of the theft of £100,000 worth of diamonds some years before, supposedly by the son of a South African gold magnate, John Eardsley, and his friend Harry Lucas. John and his friend were arrested, but John's father, Sir Lawrence, disowned his son. John Eardsley was killed in the war and his father's huge fortune passed to his next of kin. Lucas was posted as missing in action. Harry Rayburn walks into the cabin as the story is being told, overhears it, looks sick, and leaves. Race reveals that he himself is the fortunate next of kin. Anne confides in Suzanne and they examine the piece of paper Anne obtained in the underground station. They realize that the paper could refer to Cabin 71, Suzanne's cabin, originally booked by a Mrs. Gray, a pseudonym for Nadina. Anne and Suzanne speculate that Nadina was the dead woman in the Mill House. Anne suddenly connects finding the film roll in Mill House with a canister of film that was dropped into Suzanne's cabin on the night of the 22nd. They look inside the canister and find uncut diamonds. They speculate that Harry Rayburn is the man in the brown suit. Anne is attacked as she walks the deck of the ship. Harry Rayburn saves her. Anne amazes Harry with her knowledge of events in Marlow and at Hyde Park Corner Station, and suggests that Harry may be Harry Lucas and the man in the brown suit. They again part on bad terms. Once they arrive in Cape Town, Anne is lured to a house at Moisenberg, where she is imprisoned in the attic by a bearded Dutchman. Anne overhears another person she met on board the Kilmorden Castle, the Rev. Chichester, speaking with the Dutchman about the Colonel wanting to question her tomorrow. The next day she escapes and makes her way back to Cape Town. There she finds that Harry is wanted as the man in the brown suit but has gone missing. Pedler offers Anne the role of his secretary on his continuing trip to Rhodesia. She accepts at the last second, and is reunited on the train with Race, Suzanne, and Pedler, who has another new secretary named Miss Pettigrew. In Bulawayo, Anne receives a note from Harry which lures her out to a ravine near their hotel. There she is chased and falls into the ravine. Almost a month later, Anne awakens in a hut on an island in the Zambezi with Harry Rayburn, who rescued her. He reveals that someone deliberately caused her to fall. Anne and Harry fall in love. Harry tells her of the diamond discovery he and John Yeardsley made years earlier. They were duped by a young woman called Anita Grunberg, who substituted their diamonds for ones stolen from De Beers. After being listed as missing in action, Harry disappeared, coming to Africa under the name of Harry Parker. Some time later he came across a man, Carden, and recognized him from the incident with Anita Grunberg. Carden is revealed to be the man who fell in the tube station and dropped the note Anne found. Harry followed Carden to London and Nadina to the mill house, but insists Nadina was already dead. He realized that the diamonds were probably still on the Kilmorden Castle. Anne confirms that they were, and were handed to Suzanne in her cabin on the night of the 22nd. Harry's island is attacked that night by a party led by the red-bearded Dutchman, but the two manage to escape, and Anne plans to return to Peedler's party where she can keep an eye on developments. They exchange codes to be used in future communications so that neither can be duped again. Reunited with Suzanne, Anne is told that the diamonds are with luggage sent on with Sir Eustace. She also receives a telegram from Harry telling her to meet him. Anne goes to the meeting with Harry and again bumps into Chichester, alias Miss Pettigrew. She is led to Sir Eustace, alias the Colonel. Peddler forces Anne to write a note to Harry to lure him to his office, which she does, but she does not include their code in it. Harry turns up and Peddler is exultant, until Anne pulls out a pistol and they capture Peddler. Race turns up with reinforcements and Peddler tries to bluff matters out, but is unsuccessful. Sir Eustace manages to escape. Anne is somewhat pleased, having developed a fondness for him. Race tells her that Harry is in fact John Yeardsley, not Harry Lucas, and therefore the heir to the fortune. Harry however has found his happiness with Anne, and they marry and live on the island in the Zambezi. Characters in The Man in the Brown Suit: Anne Bedingfield, orphaned daughter of Professor Bedingfeld, famous archaeologist. John Yeardsley, son of Sir Lawrence Yeardsley, the South African mining magnate, alias Harry Rayburn. Colonel Race, a distant cousin of Sir Lawrence Yeardsley. The Hun Mrs. Suzanne Blair, a society lady. Sir Eustace Peddler, MP. Guy Paget, Sir Eustace Peedler's secretary. Anita Grunberg, alias Nadina, alias Mrs. de Castina, alias Mrs. Gray, one-time agent of the Colonel. Arthur Minks, alias the Rev. Edward Chichester, alias Miss Pettigrew, alias Count Sergius Paulovich, an agent of the Colonel. Harry Lucas, friend of John Yeardsley, killed in the First World War. Mr. Fleming, solicitor, and his wife, Anne's landlords after her father's death. L.B. Carden, husband of Anita Grunberg and victim at Hyde Park Tube Station. Inspector Meadows of Scotland Yard. Lord Nasby, owner of the Daily Budget and Anne's employer, a red-bearded Dutchman, an agent of the Colonel. Mrs. Caroline James, wife of the gardener at the mill house. The Colonel, a criminal mastermind whose identity is concealed for most of the story. Literary significance and reception. The Times Literary Supplement reviewed the novel in its issue of the 25th of September 1924. The review appreciated the thriller cum adventure style of the book and concluded, the author set so many questions to the reader in her story, questions which will almost certainly be answered wrongly, that no one is likely to nod over it, and even the most experienced reader of romances will fail to steer an unerring course and reach the harbor of solution through the quicksands and shoals of blood, diamonds, secret service, impersonation, kidnapping, and violence with which the mystery is guarded. The unnamed reviewer in The Observer, the 7th of September 1924, wrote, Miss Christie has done one bold and one regrettable thing in this book. She has dispensed with Hercule Poirot, her own particular Sherlock Holmes, to whose presence and bonhomie and infallibility the success of her previous books has been mainly due. After comparing Poirot with Harry Rayburn, the reviewer continued by saying that the book will be something of a disappointment to those who remember the mysterious affair at Styles. It is an excellent and ingenious complexity, in its way, but it might have been written by quite a number of the busy climbers of who now throng this particular slope of Parnassus. One almost suspects that Miss Christie contemplates exchanging the mantle of Conan Doyle for that of Miss Dell, a hazardous maneuver, for the two authoresses are very different in tastes and sympathies. The reviewer went on to say that, the plan of the book is rather confused. There is a prologue which does not link itself up with the rest of the story for quite a long time, and the idea of giving alternate passages from the diaries of the heroine and of Sir Eustace Peddler is not altogether justified by the glimpses it gives of that entertaining but disreputable character. One of the points on which some readers will have doubts is as to the plausibility of the villain. Assuredly he is a novel type in that role. The book, like all Miss Christie's work, is written with spirit and humor. Robert Barnard, written during and about a trip to southern Africa. This opens attractively with the heroine and her archaeologist father. Agatha's interest in the subject was obviously pre-Max, and has some pleasant interludes with the diary of the baddie, but it degenerates into the usual stuff of her thrillers, and the plot would probably not bear close examination, if anyone were to take the trouble. Some additional blurbs regarding the book, and used by the Bodley Head for advertising subsequent print runs, are as follows. A capital tale, mystery piled on mystery, story, incident on incident. Referee, Agatha Christie has written a most entertaining story, excellently conceived and executed. Morning Post, references to actual history, geography and current science. The book has some parallels to incidents and settings of around-the-world work trip taken by Christie with her first husband Archie Christie and headed by his old teacher from Clifton College, Major E. A. Belcher, to promote the forthcoming 1924 British Empire exhibition. The tour lasted from the 20th of January to the 1st of December 1922. It was on the tour that Christie wrote the short stories which would form all of Poirot Investigates, 1924, and most of the contents of Poirot's early cases, published in 1974. Dining with the Christies before the trip, Belcher had suggested setting a mystery novel in his home, The Mill House at Dorney, and naming the book The Mystery of the Mill House, and had insisted on being in it as well. He is the inspiration for the central character Sir Eustace Pedlar, having been given a title at Archie's suggestion. The Mill House also makes an appearance, albeit transposed to Marlowe. Christie found Belcher childish, mean and somehow addictive as a personality. Never, to this day, have I been able to rid myself of a sneaking fondness for Sir Eustace, wrote Agatha of the fictionalized Belcher, whom she put into The Man in the Brown Suit. I dare say it's reprehensible, but there it is. Film, TV or theatrical adaptations. The Man in the Brown Suit, 1988. The book was adapted by Alan Shane Productions in association with Warner Brothers Television as TV movie in 1988. The adaptation is set in a more contemporary era than the 1920s and many details are changed as a result. Adaptator, Carla Jean Wagner. Director, Alan Grint. Main cast, Stephanie Zimbalist, Anne Bedingfeld, Rue McClanahan, Susie Blair, Tony Randall, Rev Edward Chichester, Edward Woodward, Sir Eustace Pedlar, Ken Howard, Gordon Race, Nicholas Grace, Guy Underhill, Simon Dutton, Harry Lucas's, Maria Casal, Anita, Federico Luciano, Leo Carden, Rose McVeigh, Valerie. Graphic novel adaptation. The Man in the Brown Suit was released by HarperCollins as a graphic novel adaptation on the 16th of July 2007, and, on the 3rd of December 2007 was adapted by Hugoat and illustrated by Barry, ISBN 000-725062-2. This was translated from the edition first published in France by Emmanuel Proust Editions in 2005 under the title of La Ma Complète Marin. Publication history. 1924, John Lane, The Bodley Head, the 22nd of August 1924, hardcover, 312 pp. 1924, Dodd Mead and Company, New York, 1924, hardcover, 275 pp. 1949, Dell Books, New York, 1949. Paperback, Dell No. 319 Mapback, 223 pp. 1953, Pan Books, 1953, Paperback, Pan No. 250, 190 pp. 1958, Pan Books, 1958, Paperback, Great Pan G 176, 1978, Panther Books, London, 1978, 192 pp. ISBN 0-586-04516-3, 1984, Elverscroft Large Print Edition, hardcover, ISBN 0-7089-1125-0, 1988, Fontana Books, imprint of HarperCollins, 1988, Paperback, 240 pp. ISBN 0-00-617475-2, 2007, Facsimile of 1924 UK First Edition, HarperCollins, 5 November 2007, hardcover, 312 pp. ISBN 0-00-726518-2. Following completion in late 1923, The Man in the Brown Suit was first serialized in the London Evening News under the title Anne the Adventuress. It ran in 50 installments from Thursday the 29th of November 1923 to Monday the 28th of January 1924. There were slight amendments to the text, either to make sense of the openings of an installment, e.g., changing she then, to Anne then, or omitting small sentences or words. The main change was in the chapter divisions. The published book has 36 chapters whereas the serialization has only 28 chapters. In her 1977 autobiography, Christie made a slight mistake with the name of the serialization and refers to it as Anna the Adventuress, possibly confusing it with the 1904 book of the same name by E. Phillips Oppenheim. Irrespective of this mistake, the change from her preferred title was not of her choosing and the newspaper's choice was one that she considered to be as silly a title as I have ever heard. She raised no objections, however, as the Evening News were paying her £500, pound in current terms, for the serial rights which she and her family considered an enormous sum. At Archie, her first husband's suggestion, Christie used the money to purchase a grey, bottle-nosed Morris Cowley. She later stated that acquiring her own car ranked with dining at Buckingham Palace as one of the two most exciting incidents in her life. Christie was less pleased with the dust jacket of the book, complaining to the Bodley Head that the illustration, by an unnamed artist, looked as if the incident at the tube station occurred in medieval times. When she wanted something more clear, definite and modern, the Bodley Head were anxious to sign a new contract with Christie, now recognizing her potential, but she wanted to move on, feeling that they had not treated a young author fairly. The U.S. serialization was in the Blue Book magazine in 3 installments from September, Volume 39, Issue 5, to November 1924, Volume 40, Issue 1, with each issue containing an uncredited illustration. Book dedication. Christie's dedication in the book reads, "To EAB, in memory of a journey, some lion stories and a request that I should someday write The Mystery of the Mill House." EAB refers to Major E.A. Belcher. See references to actual history, geography and current science above. Dust jacket blurb. The dust jacket front flap of the first edition carried no specially written blurb. Instead, both the front and back flap carried adverts for other Bodley Head novels.